They have multiple houses of the $300,000 houses that they will sell to retail buyers at $300,000. But as an investor being part of our community, you can buy the house for $270,000. You have $30,000 of immediate equity. Where it gets exciting though, Alex, is that you don't have to do that. The investor gets to choose how they want to use that incentive. So that $30,000 at 10%, you can certainly take a price reduction, which will lower your mortgage and allow you to have an equity position.
Welcome to the Physicians and Properties Podcast, the show where we teach you how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want.
Doctor! 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 Doctor!
Now, here's your host, Dr. Alex Schloe.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Alex Schloe. Today's episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast, honestly, is probably one of my favorite episodes for many different reasons. In this episode, we have an incredible guest, Dr. Zach Lemaster, who is the founder and CEO of Rent to Retirement, which is the nation's leading turnkey investment company. Zach is a seasoned real estate investor and licensed broker, and he himself and his wife have created an incredible business and also accumulated a really large portfolio across multiple markets. We talk a lot in this podcast about Zach's journey, which is incredibly similar to mine. He was an optometrist and a captain in the Air Force, also got the Health Promotion Scholarship Program, started investing in real estate while he was in the Air Force, and started building Rent to Retirement. This eventually allowed him to retire early from his career in medicine and to be a professional investor, allowing him to practice optometry when he wants to, and now they volunteer and do a lot of international outreach in terms of optometry. Zach has shown us the path for how you can invest in real estate and entrepreneurship and be able to practice medicine or practice optometry how you want to. This episode was incredible. He also talks a lot about Rent to Retirement and what it takes to grow and scale a company, which is really helpful and insightful. And then he gives us an example of some physicians who bought a little over $1 million in real estate through Rent to Retirement, buying 6 turnkey build to rent or new construction properties, how they walked into approximately $300,000 in tax deductions through cost segregation in that property, how they also were able to do this with almost zero money down out of pocket. In fact, they received money back at the closing table. So if that excites you, if you're interested, check out renttoretirement.com, click the link in the show notes. Also, while you're there, warm the thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe to this podcast, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and share this with someone who you think could benefit from it. So without any further ado, let's get started with today's episode with Zach Lemaster, the founder and CEO of Rent to Retirement. Dr. Zachary Lemaster, how you doing? Good to have you on the podcast, man. How's it going?
Dr. Alex, good to be here, man. Thanks. You're a real doc, but yeah, I think, thanks for having me on. And I just got to tell you, we were talking before the show. I've never had such a good pre-show conversation. You and I have so much in common from multiple aspects. Really, really cool to be on here. So thanks for having me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, in the Colorado connection. So we're just destined to be friends, which is great, man. Well, please just call me Alex, and I'm just going to call you Zach. But super, super excited to have you on the podcast. For folks who don't know who you are, do you mind just telling folks a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Zach Lemaster. I'm the founder and owner of Rent to Retirement. We are really today now the nation's leading turnkey and build to rent investment company. So if you're listening to Bigger Pockets or online searching turnkey or build to rent, our company will inevitably come up. We do a lot of new construction deals where basically, we build them, lease them, and manage them, or rehab them sometimes too for our investors across the country in some of the best markets. But yeah, I have a background in healthcare. I was an optometrist by education, so is my wife. Just like you, Alex, I was on the HPSP, so I was commissioned as a captain in the Air Force and practiced there for 6 to 7 years, moved out to Colorado. Post that, we worked in private practice for a little bit, and I slowly kind of retired myself early from career in eye care through real estate investing and building Rent to Retirement. So there's obviously a lot to that, but that's kind of the short story on me.
That's awesome, man. Did you know you always wanted to do optometry?
I did, yeah, because I had terrible vision. I've had multiple eye surgeries since I was a little kid. I mean, my optometrist was really influential on me. And so, yeah, I think I decided when I was probably in 7th or 8th grade, I was like, this is what I want to do. And that's what I did.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Interestingly, eyeballs for some reason for me, just not a fan. And so, yeah, I could never do that. So I'm really, really grateful for folks like you and grateful for some of the optometrists we have at Peterson, which is one of the other bases, because I've definitely called them a few times and been very grateful that they've been able to see some patients very quickly. And it's really important, of course, few things are more important than vision. So it's really awesome.
It's an important sense for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. Did the military, was that always something that you wanted to do as well? Or was the HPSP opportunity kind of too good to pass up?
I had thought about the military. Not my direct parents were military, but a lot of our family members, extended family, were military. And like my uncle, he always talked about, joining he was the Air National Guard, retired. My optometrist was colonel and, ran the whole Wyoming, like healthcare system for a long time. So, that seed was planted, but certainly the scholarship aspect of it was very attractive. And I was attracted to the military in general. So yeah, I applied for the HPSP and was fortunate to get it. So there you go.
That's great. Yeah, I don't know if we've actually really talked about HPSP scholarship on the podcast, but for folks that are listening and wondering what that is, the Health Promotion Scholarship Program, essentially different medical fields, oftentimes providers, physicians, optometrists. I think physical therapy now even has a HPSP program that you can apply. And if you get accepted, then they'll pay for your school. You'll get a little stipend and then you'll owe your payback time. So I had a 4-year scholarship program. So I owe 4 years of active duty time, which is coming to an end, but they paid for medical school. Got a little stipend, graduated med school, and I did not have a negative net worth. And so that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. And they pay to live, right? I think we got like a few $1,000 a month, like even in school, which was like living big at the time, right? So yeah, it's a great program.
Yeah, my stipend was like $1,900, I think, my first year of med school. And I never, had consistently $1,900 a month coming in. And I remember thinking like I was rich. I was like, oh, I could live off $2,000, a month forever. And it was awesome. And it was kind of cool to get paid to go to school. And I didn't have any time to spend it. So it worked out just fine.
There you go.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. How was your time in the military? How was that experience for you?
It was good, bad, to be honest. I'm someone that I figured out, I knew this going in, but I just don't like being told what to do so much. And if the leadership, the military, it can, look, I took a lot of great things away from that. That actually was a catalyst to real estate investing because I had the first house I bought was a duplex. I used a VA loan, which is fantastic, right? And I used the VA loan multiple times to buy multiple investment properties. You can have multiple VA loans at one point in time. A lot of people don't know that. But yeah, the military was good. There's certain things I took away. Some of my best friends I met in the military, lots of military, like real estate centric groups that I joined, and that was central. But you get sometimes not, some leaders that you don't necessarily agree with, and you just got to suck it up, and they kind of control your life to some degree. So I wasn't a huge fan of that aspect, but overall, real positive experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the military, kind of that fortitude and grit that gets instilled in you while you're in the military translates so well. And same for really any veteran. Like they make such good business owners, such good entrepreneurs because they've really had that leadership experience and they've got their teeth kicked in a few times.
Yeah. Yep. You got to have thick skin, right? You learn. And yes, absolutely. A lot of those concepts apply to investing, to business, to managing people and running a business, right? So certainly a lot of those skills were good to develop and refine.
Absolutely. So you bought a duplex with the VA loan, and that sounds like that was kind of the initial foray into real estate investing. What did it look like after that?
So that one, and that was probably, 13, 14 years ago when we bought that first duplex. And that was the first house we'd ever bought, our primary residence. Again, just coming out of school, that was like that first year. I think I closed on that one, Alex, like within 2 months of like being commissioned to active duty. So I was wasting no time, and I bought it sight unseen, I was stationed in Grand Forks. So I bought it before I even went out to Grand Forks. I was just really excited to just get going and take action. And after that, I tell people there's never been a single year that we haven't bought real estate since then. There's been a lot of deals I'm not saying we made money on all of them, but we bought real estate every single year since that first one. And so the next one, the next year we just bought, I think it was another duplex, and it took a while to buy that one. And so I was managing a couple duplexes, one house hacking. And the next year after that, bought a few single family, and I think maybe another multi. I did some wholesaling as well to build up capital and brought in some partners. I was fortunate enough to build a little bit of equity in that first house, even putting no money down on a VA loan, and took out a HELOC on that. So, I was a little scrappy and used the resources to just continually buy real estate. And then from that point, I think year 4 or 5, we started investing out of state and figuring that out. And that was kind of the impetus for Rent to Retirement, is we did not have a good experience investing out of state, but tried to kind of refine a better process to first look at good markets and kind of refine our investment criteria and build teams around that as well. So
that's cool. What was that experience like investing out of state? I know a lot of folks listening to this podcast maybe live in like Southern California or some other places where maybe it doesn't make sense to them necessarily to invest, and they want to know about out of state investing. What was that experience like for you, Zach?
Yeah, well, at first it wasn't good. And the reason why we actually bought Turnkey the first time, and it's, now we have a very large turnkey company, but we bought quote unquote Turnkey because it's a buzzword, right? And people are thinking it's going to be hands off. We just kind of trusted numbers on paper. We bought they call them 2 flats, duplexes and triplexes, or 3 flats in Southside Chicago. Those are really low income areas and had decent rehab, at least on the surface, but it just performed terribly, and the tenants trashed them. And then the rehab started to fall apart very quickly. And so that was not a good experience. And we ended up losing money on all those deals. But it was also like, hey, we have to find a better way to do this. But I'll say this though, Alex, too, investing out of state, that is the single probably, and we've owned millions and millions of dollars of real estate all across the country, different asset classes. But that first thought about like investing out of state, that is the most important decision I made. Ultimately allowed us to build this business, allowed us to really refine our search criteria for real estate and really understand real estate, quite frankly. We started locally, which is completely fine. A lot of people do that. But I mean, we were in Grand Forks. This isn't like a super hot market, right? And we weren't attached to Grand Forks either because we knew that we were not going to be there forever. And so while we started locally, I mean, we also were receptive to hey, there's got to be a better market out there that's more conducive with our goals. There's a lot, we saw these areas that are growing and appreciating well and still cash flowing and probably even more affordable still though. And so we're why not try to strategically find those markets and invest in there versus just in our own backyard. And that is really what allowed us. I know I didn't have a good first experience, but we didn't stop. We continued to just find a better way to do it, invest in the areas where there was the best opportunity, best returns. And that's what allowed us to really catapult our investing progress to the point where we, surpassed our income probably within 6 or 7 years of investing. And we're both dual income professionals. And so that wasn't an easy feat to accomplish, but we were able to do that just by choosing the best markets to invest in, reinvesting our cash flow and equity. So I can be long-winded, but that was kind of the process of investing out of state was the single most important thing that I did.
That's awesome. Well, I want to pull 2 strings a little bit more. One, you didn't make money on those 3 deals that you did out of state. Was there any thought of man, real estate's not for me, I'm done? Or were you pretty confident, you had that experience in Grand Forks that turned out a bit better? Were you pretty confident you knew what to do to make investing further in other states work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a person that's a little thick-headed, and if I fail at something, I'm going to do it again until I figure it out. And sometimes I jump into stuff very quickly. I think a lot of us military guys are like that, the ready, fire, aim, but it's just all right, that sucked. How can we do it better? And let me go out and prove to myself that I can do it better. But yeah, I mean, I had that foundation in Grand Forks. I knew that real estate. And so we just kind of licked our wounds, looked at lessons learned, and just got right back on the horse and continued to invest. And the next investments we made after that were in the Southeast, and these were growth markets. And I mean, still we were figuring it out, but man, they appreciated crazy over 2 or 3 years, right? I mean, we had a 30 to 40% appreciation. And that's just part of you have to put your cards out there, right? You have to invest your capital and be in some of these areas to let real estate do what it does over time. And sometimes you get really lucky, and that's just how it goes. But after that experience, I was man, we're sold, right? And we just continued to try to scale as much as we could.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes you just have to be willing to take action, and that can be imperfect. Being okay with taking imperfect action and knowing you're going to learn from it, just like you guys did, led to now Rent to Retirement being the nation's leading turnkey investment company. And a lot of people probably would have said oh man, these 3 deals didn't work out in Chicago. This sucks. I'm done. I'm never investing in real estate again. I'm going to invest in the S&P 500 or whatever. And they would have missed out on the opportunity to do what you guys did. And so it's really inspiring to hear it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about real estate, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's, you will have problems, and it's just one, problems sometimes get bigger over time as you become a bigger investor, right? And have a larger portfolio. They never go away. Now, there's certainly things that you can do to limit your exposure to risk and mitigate some of those things, but you just have to be comfortable sometimes in the uncomfortable that there are issues, right? There's tenant issues, there's financing, there's market dynamics like that. In real estate investing is engaged, and that's how it's much different than the S&P 500. And this better than anyone, Alex, because you're invested in multiple states and in multiple asset classes, and you're killing it. But I think if you can just be confident, if you can stick through some of those hard times, you can also appreciate and benefit from the crazy upsides, right? And that's really that, real estate is a beautiful thing because there's a lot of different ways you can invest in it. But I think this is the most, we've all heard it, there's more millionaires made in real estate than any other asset class, and it's the most predictable path to wealth. And it truly is if you stay the course, right? If you have a little bit of grit and you learn from your mistakes, it does not take a lifetime to build significant amount of wealth. It won't happen overnight, but if you just stick to it, I mean, in a short period of time, like I said, 5 to 6 years, we surpassed double 6-figure income. And we were able to do that through intentional investing consistently over time.
That's awesome. Over those 5 to 6 years in consistent investment, what did that look like for you? What were you guys targeting? I know Southeast market, it sounds like, but what were you guys looking for, and how fast did that 5 to 6 years go in terms of growth for you guys?
Yeah, and there's a big translation between that, like year 4 to 6, because we went through multiple 1031 exchanges, and it's like, all right, that was like really an eye opener thing for us, because we were just chipping away, like nothing too creative. It's just bread and butter real estate in the right market. Single family houses was the majority of our portfolio. We had some duplexes, some triplexes, a couple quad, small multifamily single. That's where we cut our teeth and built our wealth, like honestly. And once we were more strategic about investing in the areas that made the most sense, where there was high rental demand, where rental increase was happening significantly year after year, where there was appreciation because it was in undersupplied housing. I mean, just owning a handful of houses in the right market, that kind of changed everything, because those houses appreciated, and then we sold them. We took that equity, and did a 1031 exchange, so we didn't have to pay capital gains. We just traded up. We traded up into more houses, and all of a sudden, our cash flow like doubled or tripled after a couple 1031 exchanges, where we were selling a small portfolio of homes for more homes that had better numbers. We got a little bit more into multifamily, not significantly, but had some more small multifamily, where it's like all of a sudden we just own significantly more real estate, just reinvesting the equity. And that's huge. And mitigating the tax liability, right? Like that's kind of the two things I think, Alex, to really like traject yourself, get that hockey stick growth, is invest in good locations with good teams, fundamentally, own real estate over time, reinvest your cash flow in your equity, reinvest your equity, and be a tax efficient investor. I mean, if you just kind of learn how to do that and just follow consistently, that's it, right? That's the ticket to wealth. And it's not all going to be perfect over time, but that's exactly what we did. And now, we're very conscious about being tax efficient. We have a successful business. We have income from our rental properties. We still practice on a volunteer basis, by the way. We have some humanitarian efforts with establishing cataract clinics in third world countries, and we're very passionate about that. So we still have like that eye care component, and we love doing that. But yeah, just like right now, we buy a ton of real estate. Our goal is to buy enough real estate every single year to offset our active income. And that's a lot of real estate to buy, but that's our goal, right? And we've been able to do that doing things like accelerated depreciation, cost segregation, and then 1031 exchanges. Like once you really kind of understand the tax side, you can accomplish big things in a short period of time.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it really goes to show how many different ways you can make money in real estate and keep money in your pocket with real estate, which is equally as important, especially for physicians and high income earners. Like real estate is such a great way to make money and improve the amount of money you're getting back from Uncle Sam, or keeping from Uncle Sam, which is great. That's awesome, Zach. Love to hear that. How was Rent to Retirement born for you? How was that created?
And don't let me forget, because I do want to share some examples of some docs that we're working with where we help them do accelerated depreciation without being real estate professionals. And some of these numbers will blow your mind, Alex, because we're helping them buy properties with no money down. And that's kind of like a clickbait type of thing to say, but I'll explain how that works. It's very you'll understand. And they're saving six figures. Like we've helped multiple professionals save six figures in taxes and do that within their first few real estate deals. But yeah, Rent Retirement. So, out of because I think this is our 9th year in business now, but and I was doing like what we're doing now today, but that was when we officially formed like the business and really had that vision. That was formed out of my wife and I, just our success investing out of state. Once we kind of had a process in place and we started to see success, we had a lot of friends and family and colleagues that were like, some of my optometry colleagues, right? They're like, you guys are doing some cool things in real estate. I want to invest in real estate. I don't have the time. I don't have the knowledge. Like, can you just help us? Can we give you money? Can you show us what you're doing? And so it really started, honestly, the first couple of people were my classmates that we helped, just follow the same process, replicating what we did, because we had a very systematic approach of identifying the best markets across the country. Like our motto is to make the best deals across the country accessible to everyone, and do that in a manner where we're handling everything for them so they can focus on their career and their family. So you can own the best deals across the country because we're identifying where those markets are at and building teams and systems around those areas to be able to offer those to our investors, and then like having the boots on the ground teams to support them. So you're not buying yourself another job, right? I don't think any of your audience necessarily wants to do, maybe some of the active guys, or the crazy ones like you that are really like in the weeds. Yeah. But most people are like, I like real estate. I understand it. I like the cash flow. I like tax benefits. I like long term. I don't like managing tenants, right? And maybe my local market doesn't make sense. But yeah, rent to retirement is born out of us just having identifying the right markets and building our teams to be able to invest ourselves. And then fast forward to where we're at today, we operate across, I think, 15 or 16 different markets. We'll probably do 800 doors this year. We have thousands of investors and we're running a large scale business. And I never had that intention. I got into real estate to invest because I liked real estate. And we thought, oh, this is like being smart with our money. And maybe we could cover our expenses and supplement our retirement. But I just never stopped being conscious about the next opportunity, growing the business, investing in real estate. And it's kind of crazy to me how things can change over time if you just stay committed, right? I never got into investing thinking that we were going to grow this business. It just turned out that way because I never stopped investing, never stopped seizing opportunities. So for those of you who do, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I'm curious to hear from you on this too. But so we went to 8 years of professional school and I had the HBSB, but I still had about $400,000 of debt because I only got a 2-year HBSB. I still owed him 4 years. But I had a lot of debt too. And it's kind of interesting. It was a very hard thing for me to fully retire. I remember my mother-in-law was like, don't do this, because she's a very proud Asian lady. And she's like, what are you doing? You're throwing away this degree. And it was hard. I cut my practicing hours back from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. And eventually I was just like, let's just do this on a volunteer basis. But it was a slow progression for me. And I think that's, for a lot of your audience, I mean, all the professionals, you spend a lot of time and energy and are proud of your practice, but it's a different mindset when you can do it, part-time or when you want to. And that's a really cool thing to experience.
Yeah, it is. I think a lot of times, we get kind of wrapped up in the identity of the white coat and the stethoscope and, what that means. And it's an incredible opportunity that we have getting to take care of patients. But that's not everything, man. That's not your whole identity. And I think that it's really hard for docs. And I've talked to a lot of physicians who now practice because they want to, not because they have to. And they've all struggled initially with that. Man, I'm really passionate about entrepreneurship or this turnkey property that I'm building. And I want to step back, but this is all I've ever known. And I spent all this time in school. You're exactly right. And so there's kind of that almost imposter syndrome of entrepreneurship, or I'm just a doctor, which I tell folks all the time, if you can go to med school and do residency and practice as a physician, you can absolutely kick ass in real estate investing. And so, I think that that's just something that folks have to get over. But yeah, definitely something that's commonly a struggle and something I hear pretty often.
Yeah, but you don't know it until you get there, right? And you just have to keep taking the next adventure. But yeah, it's a good problem to have, making a bunch of money in a good profession that you enjoy and being able to be smart with that money and compound that money over time. So you have some opportunity to, practice at your own will. So
I think it's important to have that active income and then take that and put that into more of the quote unquote passive bucket, investment bucket. And I think sometimes, maybe in our culture these days, FIRE or just completely retiring early is sexy right now. And that sounds great, but I feel like a lot of times docs, we've worked so hard to get where we are. We're probably never going to be that person that's just sitting on the beach drinking martini or drinking margaritas, because a martini on the beach would be gross. But you know what I mean? And so I think that it's something that we're always probably going to be learning and building something. I think about myself, I'm fortunate with our real estate and business and so forth that I'll probably be able to practice medicine how I want to in June of 2025, whether that's part-time, whether it's taking a break or, who knows. But I really love the patient care aspect. I don't necessarily love some of the other stuff that is involved in medicine, but having that ability to make that decision and pick a job because I really want to, I'm super grateful for that opportunity. And who knows, maybe I'll just go work full time, but it's just having that ability and having that kind of defensive metric, which I feel like cash flow gives you, is really important.
Couldn't agree more. Well said, Alex. And that's what it's all about, right? Having the flexibility where, and any entrepreneur, you're not going to, not work, right? It's about working and putting your passion, your time into where your passion is. And also just being if I want to peace out for 2 weeks and take my family across the country, wherever, we can do that. And our business is sustainable, right? And I think a lot of people are pursuing that flexibility aspect because that's really what it's about at the end of the day.
Yeah, time freedom is most important. I got a little taste of that. We just got back from some paternity leave and got a 4-month-old. But in the Air Force now, probably not when you were in there, we pretty significant paternity leave. Now it's 3 months. And so
buddy, there you
used
go.
To be the 2 weeks and the 6 weeks, and now it's 3 months. And so really grateful for that. But yeah, we just packed up the family, got a 3.5-year-old and a 4-month-old. And we hopped in the truck and took the camper out to Yosemite and did a 20-day camping trip. And I was out there and I'm like, man, this is what life could be. This is time freedom right now. We don't really know where we're going. We don't have a plan. We're just stopping because we want to stop and hiking where we want to hike and camping where we want to. And man, it was amazing. It's a great taste.
Well, Yeah, that's awesome. And congrats on the new baby. And you're a brave man taking a 4-month-old on a long road trip. I guess they sleep a lot, so you're okay there. But.
Yeah, he did all right. He actually sleeps better in the camper than he does at home. So we're like, man, maybe we need to just move into the camper.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. But yeah, really, really cool. Well, that's awesome to hear, rental retirement came from. What are some lessons that you learned building that business? Like we're in that building phase right now with our company doing assisted living, in that building phase for sure. So what was that like, or kind of what were some keys that you learned as the business started to grow?
Oh, there's so much at different stages, and there's always, like I said, there's the next challenge, or you could call it the next problem, and then you solve that one, and then your business grows. Because we've been fortunate. We've had growth, at least revenue-wise and size and number of volume every single year since inception. And that was a tough thing to do over these past couple of years, actually, because of interest rates and real estate slowed down a little bit. But fortunately, we've always been very good about finding opportunity. Early on, it was just being a one-man show in the very, very beginning. And I enjoyed the hustle and I worked individually with each one of our investors and kind of managed all the subcontractors and all the different things that I had to. But, hiring good people was probably the first lesson that I learned is really important. Managing people kind of sucks, actually. But if you can hire the right people to actually take your time to find the right person, it will serve you much better long term. And so my hiring process early on was like, I just asked around colleagues and other people like, oh, do you know anyone that's looking for, okay, hire them. You know what I mean? No, just have maybe a quick phone interview, and then some of them were good, some of them not so good, and I was slow to fire them. And so I just drug things out, and we've all heard the slow to hire and quick to fire, but I think I was maybe the opposite. But I mean, now we have like a legitimate, very thorough hiring process, and we attract talent and we make sure we bring in talent. Partnerships early on, I jumped in really quickly with some partnerships that maybe, again, I should have taken some time slower to make sure that those were going to be the partners that operated with the same long-term vision. So there's that aspect. And I don't know, man. I mean, from a business side, a lot of our stuff early on was just word of mouth. And I don't even think I spent $1 on marketing until year 3 or 4. But like when I did, our business really exploded. And I kind of feel like I'm a master marketer at this point, actually, because our business is just growing. And now we spend millions of dollars every year on marketing. And we have a whole team around that. And that's really important. But those are just I think early on, people are afraid to spend money on marketing because they view it as just an expense without like a guaranteed ROI. And every business is different, but you do have to spend money to make money and, make sure that you have a good marketing message. That's, I think, essential for growth and hiring good people. I think those are probably my 2 big takeaways for growth of business.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you about marketing because you guys do an amazing job on that. Of course, as you mentioned, listening to Bigger Pockets, you hear Rental Retirement on there. I mean, you guys are everywhere and it's awesome. And yeah, we're in that stage too. We have a mastermind, the Row Room Assisted Living Mastermind, and just started a podcast, and then Physicians and Properties, and then our investment company, Open Range Capital, for the assisted living stuff. And we're in that stage now, one where we're hiring, and then also we're marketing, especially for the mastermind. We're really trying to figure out the importance of that and what's the best return of investment, what's the best return on time. And we realized that like 3 military dudes, Charlie, Luke, and I, who own the company, like we suck at writing copy and, figuring out the marketing piece. And so we're trying to get the right people on the bus and go from there and realize like, hey, that marketing spend, that ad spend is really important to then generate way more revenue than we could do just by word of mouth or referrals.
Yep. You got to just bite the bullet and spend it. But here's the thing. You have to track it, right? Your ROAS, your return on ad spend, is going to be the metric that is most important. And so a lot of people, I think, they fall short or they don't get past this marketing hump because today we know that someone needs to see an ad on average 7 times before they click on it. It is what it is. So, and that's about double from where we were at a couple of years ago. It's just, I don't know if it's political climate and economic, that's where we're at today. And ads have become so prevalent that you need to stand out from the crowd. You need to find a way to distinguish yourself. You need to build brand awareness and reputation. So when someone Googles you, they can see that you're legitimate. And then you also need to track those ads because a lot of people, I think, fall short in that business phase where they spend the marketing dollars. They're not tracking it on the back end, right? But then you're really just falling short because you got to put the money back into where the marketing works. But you also have to, I think about it as direct mail. Our direct mail campaigns, like early on when we were doing some wholesaling and some of the flips, we just throw marketing out there, just throw direct mail. But there's actually like a science around direct mail where you have to hit people on a consistent basis with all these different, and then now direct mail is prevalent. Probably not even super relevant, but yeah, tracking it it on the back end, I think is really important. But you and I can talk offline about some key marketing things that have really worked for us over time, Alex.
Oh man, I'd love that. That'd be great. Yeah. I think those touch points are really important. That's what we're realizing too. And touch points in different forms, newsletter, email, whatever that may be, ads as well. And so, definitely something that we're working on. Well, that's cool. Well, let's pivot back to rent to retirement. And I wanted to kind of hit on what you guys look for in a market and making that accessible to others, as you mentioned. But what do you guys look for in a market? What's rent to retirement working on these days that would be beneficial? And absolutely don't want to forget the story of the doctors with the no money down and the tax savings that was.
So this is, obviously I'm passionate about this stuff and it really gets me going, but let me set the stage again for Turnkey for those of you who've heard of Turnkey or maybe don't know what it is. Like, it's a buzzword. So there's a lot of different definitions. A lot of people think of turnkey as like a Midwestern 1900s house that's rehabbed and then got a tenant in it and whatever, it's a $100,000 house. That was maybe like the traditional view of turnkey to some extent. There's all still people that operate in that. I actually think we're more in the build to rent space because about 80% of what we do is new construction. And I think new construction is the way to go because you have great appreciation, quality tenants, zero maintenance, very predictable, like long-term tenant. And these are usually in growth areas. Builders are building in growth areas where there's a lot of opportunity and there's demand, right? So we've really done well with new construction and we love the build to rent stuff. But generally turnkey means how we define turnkey, Alex, is we first look for a market that meets our fundamentals. And then once we do that, we go in and we either partner with existing teams or we build our local teams in those areas to offer a house that's either fully renovated or newly built, leased, managed for an investor in an area where they know they're going to be successful and have predictable returns. And then we also have all the other ancillary things that they need to be successful, right? So we help our investors build a strategy and a plan to help them scale, ultimately to achieve their goals. We have the real estate, the property management teams. We have a diversity of lenders, insurance providers, real estate attorneys, and CPAs, all the people that you need. You're leveraging our network that we've already created. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel and build the thing from the ground up on your own because that's really time intensive and risky. So that's what we mean when we say turnkey. You access the best deals across the country where everything's done for you. So you reap the benefits of real estate without having to do all the heavy lifting. It's not 100% passive though. A lot of people talk about turnkey, passive income. And yes, we'll use that term as well, but you're still owning real estate, right? Like you still will have issues, even if you have management that's handling things for you. You still have tenants that will leave sometimes or repairs, even though management. Anyways, what we look in markets, we want to be in areas that we can be below the median house price point. So this is about 400,000 a single family. 400,000, give or take. Right now, we want to be in areas like our sweet spot is at $250,000 to $300,000 range for a single family, 4-bed, 2-bath, brand new construction, A-class asset. And a lot of that is like some Midwest and mainly Southeast in growth markets. We want to be in areas that have a diversity of industries. It's not just an area relying on like oil or gas or one industry where the things could dramatically change. We want to see areas that have landlord-friendly legislation, low taxes, future population, economic growth potential. We attend city planning meetings for these areas. We look at, even on a microeconomic scale, where is the transportation, the new jobs coming? Often we'll even be in secondary markets right now. Like perfect example is Orlando. Orlando is a very expensive market. It's highly regulated. It's hard to cash flow in Orlando. And I don't even want to invest in Orlando, but it's a sought after destination for both long and short-term rentals. We'll invest right outside of the city limits in Polk County, like areas called Poinciana, where it's like housing is a fraction of the cost. A lot of families are moving out to these suburb areas because it's more affordable. Rents are actually still relatively high, like almost comparable as Orlando. So you can cash flow the heck out of them and they're commutable, right? But they have more upside. They're below that median threshold. So that's what we look for in a market before we enter into it. A lot of what in our company operates two ways. I think most people don't understand this. And so I do want to explain it. We do build our own houses. So we do have our own building and construction team. That's actually the minority of what we do. The majority of what we do is we actually go, because as a community, we have hundreds of thousands of investors in our community that we've built over the years. We buy as a community hundreds of thousands of houses over time. And so we can go, because we have such buying power and we have the power of negotiation in that we can go to regional and national builders, guys like Toll Brothers, LGI, D.R. Horton, Lennar, and we can say, hey, we've identified a market because they build all across the country. We've identified a market that has all these fundamentals that make sense from an investment standpoint. And then we'll go to them and actually negotiate wholesale type of pricing because we're buying a lot of properties, just like an institutional buyer would, like a BlackRock would come in and buy thousands of properties. So they're obviously getting preferential pricing that the retail buyer is not getting. If they're buying one house, 10 houses, it's not hundreds of houses. And so we're able to get wholesale type of pricing at a significant significant discount on houses, and we're able to pass those discounts on to our investor community. We're the first company to be able to offer wholesale type of or institutional type of discounts on new construction homes to the individual investor. But then we'll piece all the things around it. We'll have management set up for them, the lending opportunities, things like that. So that's really how our company operates, and kind of the value add that we provide to our investors is the ability to invest across the country, wherever you're looking, it's maybe potentially in your backyard, and have discounted pricing on brand new construction homes that have good fundamentals in real estate, where everything is kind of set up for you. And you don't have to use our management teams. You could self-manage. You have a lot of people that short-term manage. I'll stop there before I go into some of the specific details on some of the docs I was talking about, to see if there's anything else I need to expand on that.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah. What an amazing company you've built, and service that you built, and just wrapping everything together. Like, it's just an incredible opportunity. I was listening to you describing, market fundamentals are incredibly sound. And the fact that, like, oftentimes I think we've all heard of a lot of turnkey companies, and sometimes that is like, that old 1950s, 1970s Midwest house where you're going to cash like $100 and it's never going to appreciate. What I hear from you is like, hey, these homes are build to rent, and they're A-class assets that not only are going to appreciate, but they also are going to cash flow. And it's hard to have those two things together. So that's an incredible combination. So yeah, really, really awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that and kind of the inner workings of rent to retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third piece of that is even coming in with potential equity, right? That's a common misnomer with turnkeys, like, oh, you're overpaying for the house, you're paying a premium. It's like, you don't have to, at least not with us, because we do have these relationships established with these national builders where we can offer you wholesale type of pricing. So you can literally have a new construction house that has good appreciation, positive cash flow, and immediate equity in a diversity of different markets. You can have your cake and eat it too with these type of assets. And I think we've just really broke down the door, like redefining the turnkey space with that. But yeah, so I'll go through an example. Like, most average, we'll just use a $300,000 house. On average, I'd say a new construction house. And a lot of the new builds we do are in the Southeast. So Texas, Alabama, Carolinas, Georgia, Florida. And we do have some Midwestern stuff in Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, but a lot of the build to rent is in the Southeast. Average price point called $300K, just for simple math on that. And that's probably going to rent out at $2,500, $2,600 a month to a quality tenant, because that's a little bit higher than the average rent there, but you're attracting a quality tenant. They want a newer house, and they'll probably stay for 4 to 5 years on average. So really predictable income. But on that $300,000 house, this is probably a national builder that we get anywhere from between 7 to sometimes 12% discounts on pricing. So we'll just call it 10% for simple math. $300,000 house, that's a $30,000 equity position. You could have immediate price reduction. They have multiple houses of the $300,000 houses that they will sell to retail buyers at $300,000. But as an investor being part of our community, you can buy the house for $270,000. You have $30,000 of immediate equity. Where it gets exciting though, Alex, is that you don't have to do that. The investor gets to choose how they want to use that incentive. So that $30,000 at 10%, you can certainly take a price reduction, which will lower your mortgage and allow you to have an equity position, probably sell that property sooner, or cash out refi, 1031. It allows you to have an immediate equity position, which is hard to do kind of in today's world, but with new construction. Or you can use that 10% however you want. You can use it to buy the rate down. We have rates where you can buy them down in the mid threes, where we saw them a few years ago on a 30-year fixed loan, and cash flow the heck out of the property. Or you can take that 10% and take it all back at closing, right? Where you actually get that cash back at closing. That means that, if you're putting 20% down on the property, you're getting 10% immediately back. So that allows you to skyrocket your ROI. You get to choose how you want to use that. You can use a combination. How we were able to help some of these docs that were brand new investors that were not real estate professionals really take a significant decrease in their taxes this year is using this concept where they got some of their cash back and they limited their cash flow. They limited their out-of-pocket expense. And here's a quick caveat on the short-term rental aspect is that, well, I'll get to that in a sec. So think about this, 10% back on a $300,000 house. Okay, that's great. Well, the other thing we do is we negotiate with lenders, and we find lenders and create lending products specifically for our investor community, again, because it's a volume play. So we kind of have a negotiation card that we can play with some large and small regional banks. We've been able to negotiate with a lot of local credit unions an investor loan product where you can put a 5% down on up to 5 investment properties. This is a portfolio loan. It's not a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan. It doesn't count as your 1 or 10 loans. It's a true investor loan. You're not having to live in this house. Most people think I got to buy a house with 20 to 25% down. Well, you do with a traditional loan. This portfolio loan is a 30-year loan. It's got a 10-year term. There's no prepayment penalty, and there's no PMI. That's the other thing, right? With a conventional loan, if you're less than 20%, you got to pay PMI, your mortgage insurance. So anyways, you still got to qualify. You got to have good credit. You got to have good DTI or below 43%. but you can buy up to 5 investment properties per person if you qualify with 5% down. So this was a physician couple, and they were making really good money. They bought more than $1 million of real estate, but I'll just kind of use a general $1 million to walk through the tax side to run some numbers with you. So we have simple math, but we helped them buy $1 million worth of real estate where they put like virtually no money down, because if they're doing 5 properties with 5% down and we're giving them 10% back, not only is it covering the down payment, but they're also, getting money back in the pocket. And they like used, they carved it up a little bit. They bought the interest rate down a little bit. They didn't take any equity out. They used a loan to pay the interest rate down and cover their down payment and closing costs. So they were virtually into the properties for no money down. They bought over $1 million worth of real estate. So on $1 million worth of real estate, and for those of you who kind of understand cost seg and accelerated depreciation, they basically, our cost seg studies that we do on new construction, which you get better depreciation with on new construction, we usually have those coming in those studies around 30%. Everyone takes normal depreciation over the life of the property, right? But what bonus depreciation allows you to do with cost seg is accelerate that. So not to get too into the weeds, but $1 million, 30% of that is about $300,000 that you can take depreciation year one against. If you're a real estate professional or going through a short-term loophole, you can take against your active income. So these docs, they could not qualify as real estate professional. They're new investors. They're both at W-2 income. We helped them buy, again, it was over $1 million, but we'll call it $1 million worth of real estate, multiple houses, self-manage as a short-term rental. They furnished these. Yes, it took a little bit more work for them, but they were highly motivated to save the significant amount of tax on their real estate. And so they put the property, they furnished them, they self-managed them for the first year. Probably next year in 2025, they will turn it over to managers, but it's really about the year that you put into service. So they bought $1 million worth of real estate. 30% is about, and their studies came in above 30%, but that's $300,000. Now this year we're at 60% bonus depreciation. So I think that was $180K. If I'm doing my math correctly, at 60%. So we had almost a $200,000 tax deduction for them with no money down. On 5, new construction is actually 6, but new construction A-class assets. Now, yes, it took some work for them, but these are the type of strategies we help people kind of build out based on their scenario, right? And so I just wanted to share that example because that could be applicable to, so I think, some of your audience that are high income earners in that scenario.
Absolutely. Wow. That's amazing, Zach. My wheels are turning. But yeah, it's just really cool how you can use those different strategies. And I think one thing you hit on that's really important is what are your goals, right? And for these folks, it sounds like, well, one, to get into real estate, but also significantly limit their tax liability and to put that money back in their pocket. And like, what just an absolutely amazing way to do that with essentially not coming out of pocket substantially. Man, that's awesome. We're going to talk offline. But definitely, I think folks will be interested in that are listening to this. And maybe it's not $1 million worth of properties or 6 homes, but maybe it's one or 2.
Yeah.
And it's starting that snowball. Next thing you know, the portfolio just keeps growing exactly like you did over your 5 to 6 years, where you guys just kept buying and kept buying and kept buying. And then next thing you know, you're at the hockey stick and you're just exponential growth from there. So man, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, what are some new things that Rent to Retirement's working on, or what are some things that folks should be looking for from you guys, from your company coming forward or coming down the pipeline, if you can share?
Yeah, so we like investing in just the fundamentals of real estate, right? We like all the things I shared previously about a market. We like bread and butter real estate. We focus on residential. You blew my mind with what you're talking about with the assisted living. I think that's just the coolest thing in the world, and sounds like those numbers are pretty juicy. But, we like bread and butter real estate, in kind of that, like I said, below median house or, median house price point where it's just like predictable. So that's single family, mainly long-term. We do have some short-term stuff, mainly long-term, small multifamily, residential. And we will always do that because that's our core competency. And I honestly think it's the most predictable path to get started in real estate. And it can probably be the most passive as well. So we always have our thumb on like where the next up and coming market is, where there's opportunity following industry growth and things like that. We've launched our academy program last year and have had, I think about 300 people sign up with that. That's just an education platform we have that kind of gives people a little bit more structure. It's a low cost thing that we actually pay people back when they invest, but we've diversified revenue streams with that. We have a lot of affiliate programs. We actually have ads available that's just kind of like internally what we've been doing. So we've been diversifying some revenue streams on our end as well, and always just looking for the next markets on where things are going to, where the next up and coming market is. And like I said, I think kind of our core focus over the next probably 2 to to 3 years is a lot of these areas that are like what we call secondary tertiary markets are right outside the large MSAs where, some of these markets like Huntsville is another example. It's gotten so expansive with all the industries coming in there and investors like know about it as well. There's a lot of investors in there. So, but you can be, 20 minutes outside of there and still be in a really good community. So those are just some of the things that we're focusing on. And we're just having a lot of fun doing it, Alex, and, growing our team.
That's awesome. It's cool to see, the path to progress in real estate as you described there with the markets and the path to progress for you guys too and what you guys have been doing. And man, what a cool opportunity. What kind of last question before I ask about how folks can reach out to you if they want to know more or invest or get started with rent to retirement. But what did you think, if you could go back to Captain Zach in the Air Force and tell him, what would you tell him from where you are now to there? What would you tell him if you could go back?
Man, I don't know if I'd say anything because then his head would get too big. Right. But no, I remember, Alex, I was driving in North Dakota, it's cold when it snows and usually snows like September and then it stays till June. But I was always like, I wasn't cheap, but I was really extremely frugal. So I had a clinic outside of the Air Force. I was working at a Target optical that I ran on Saturdays, Sundays. And I was a hustler, man. So I would work my first 2 years out of school. I was full-time Air Force, right? I would work Tuesday, Thursday evenings at that clinic because there was an undersupply there. They didn't have enough optometrists there. And then I worked Saturday, Sunday. I did that for 2 years, 7 days to pay off loans. And I drove a 96 Ford Taurus. I actually hit a deer with it and still drove, and I still drove that thing for a year, dented up. And I was making, I was making probably $300K, like between the real estate deals and the both jobs, and so, but I remember my first like real duplex that I bought that I wasn't living in. I was like, I feel pretty good about myself and it's good to have those positive reinforcement moments. But like I said, man, it's just, I never had the intention to, and I hopefully haven't let it go too much to my head, but I never had the intention of building this large scale business and owning the large portfolio we have today. It's just, I've always just kept my nose down to the grindstone and just continue to keep investing. But it is interesting to think back about like your mindset. And I think I had a limiting belief early on, and I wasn't too concerned. I never thought that I would accomplish those types of things. But I guess to the audience, you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what the future, all you can do is focus on now. And then once you accomplish that first thing, it's on to the next. And once you set yourself a goal, and once you reach that first goal, like our first goal was $3,000 expenses a month, right? And we covered that very quickly. It's like, oh, what's the next thing, right? And it's like, oh, surpass our income. Oh, it's 7-figure annual income from rental property. Like the next thing is the next thing. You just stay hyper focused on what's in front of you, accomplish it with everything you got and kill it. And then, you see the next thing. So I don't know if I just answered your question or rambled on. I don't know what I'd tell myself.
No, that's good, man. That's awesome. I think I was thinking about climbing up the mountain. We often have those mountaintop moments where, we just get so focused on the climb where we're looking down, watching our feet, and we don't take time to take a look around and enjoy the view as we're going up the mountain. It sounds like you've been focused on climbing the mountain, but you've also stopped, take time and enjoyed the view along the way. And I think that that's really important, anything, whether that's the grind of getting into med school and becoming a doc, or whether that's the grind of, investing in entrepreneurship. I think it's really important to stop and take a moment, enjoy the view, see where you came from, see how far you traveled, and go from there. So, man, that's awesome. Love the journey, man.
Yeah. And we actually, I will say this, after I left the Air Force, because my wife's Canadian, we had to go through the process of her immigration, which took some time, but we took 7 months off after we left the Air Force. And we traveled to 45, 50 countries. It was just, this was pre-kids. And, we just went around and we had the ability to do that because our rental properties supported that, but that was kind of my first aha moment where we were traveling and just living it up. And that was a really cool thing. But yeah, you do have to stop and smell the roses sometimes too and enjoy your hard work.
Yeah, and it is hard work. I mean, it's no shortage of hard work to get to where you guys got and where you're going. And it's just super, super important to take some time to smell the roses along the way. Man, that's awesome, Zach. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. How can folks reach out to you if they want to know more about rent to retirement or potentially invest with y'all?
Yeah, always want to drive traffic to our website. That's renttoretirement.com, renttoretirement.com. I mean, we have our podcast, our YouTube channel. We put out a lot of information about market data. We'd be happy to speak with anyone if they're interested on some of these creative loan structures we talked about, new construction, investing in turnkey, and just our goal is to add value to everyone we speak with, whether you're investing with us or not. We don't charge investors anything. We make our money through building and selling houses, right? So, and if you're in the car listening to this, you can text REI to 33777, and we'd be happy to connect with anybody.
Yeah. Wait till you stop at the stoplight, then text that number. But that's awesome, man. Well, definitely check out renttoretirement.com, the podcast, everything you guys are doing. It's been so cool to see your journey along the way as I've been following along on different podcasts and hearing your story, and excited to hang out sometime in Colorado, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Alex.
Absolutely, Zach. Thanks for your time, man. With that, it's been Dr. Zach Lemaster and Dr. Alex Schloe with another episode of the Physicians and Properties Podcast, signing off. Hey, real quick, if you're still listening to this, I'm assuming you got value from it. So I need your help specifically. My 2-year vision with this podcast is to help 100,000 physicians learn how investing in real estate can give you the freedom to practice medicine and live life how you want. There are 2 main ways that a podcast grows. One is through ratings and reviews, and the other is word of mouth. If you can please leave me a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as send this to 1 to 2 friends that you think would get value from it, we can reach the physicians that we want to reach. Thanks in advance, and talk to you on the next episode. Please note that the information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial or medical advice. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Defense or the United States Air Force.